Well, hey, I'm excited here in just a couple days to be taking sabbatical for the first time, really, in my the life of my ministry, and I wanted to talk a little bit about some reasons I'm taking sabbatical. And God's blessed us with a church that we encourage all of our leaders to take sabbaticals, and we help them do that. And God's also blessed me personally with some really great friends. One of them led the largest study on sabbaticals ever done in America. And so he's been super helpful in just kind of talking to me and giving me some info and ideas and thoughts. And so I can't speak for others on why they take sabbaticals. I can just speak for myself. And, first and foremost, I want to model rest for our church, for Church in the Wild. We encourage rest at Church in the Wild. We did a whole series on rest. We did a series called Healthy Habits. And in that series, I talked about this idea that rest is a scheduled refueling of our souls. Rest is different than retreat. Retreat is when we don't rest. And so we're like, you know what, I gotta take a day off because I'm so overwhelmed, or you know what, I'm not going to church on the days that I'm not serving because I'm just tired. And so rather than attending church, we serve at church, and that's not rest, that's retreat. And there's also recklessness, which is getting into sin, and sometimes because we don't rest, we retreat or we become reckless. And so I want to model a good way to do this. It's not perfect, but for me, I think it's a good plan. I started praying about this last year, and then in January started talking about it with my wife, and then right around March talked with some other leaders, counselors, coaches, friends about it, and then we brought our elders and talked about it in April and May with our elders, and then with our church in June. We talked about it in a sermon and let the church know. And I think that's a good pattern to lead up to resting. Rather than saying, on a Saturday night, hey, I'm not coming tomorrow. It's like, hey, this is a pattern. This is a rhythm of rest that I'm scheduling so that I can refuel my soul. And so I want to model that. One of my favorite sayings is, you can't take people to a place you've never been. And so I want to model rest well. Also, I want to spend time with my family. Our daughter is about to enter first grade. And so this is kind of her last free summer before that. And I want her to have the best summer of her life. And I want those memories to be with Sam and I. Sam owns a business and leads a ministry in our church. So she's incredibly busy. And so we want to just spend some time together as a family in this moment, in this season of life. And I think I want this because my parents modeled it so well for me. My parents did this. I still remember, it's one of my favorite memories. I think about it all the time and go back to it often with really fond memories. My parents rented a motorhome, and we drove all over the West and the Midwest in that motorhome for like almost an entire summer. It seemed like an entire summer to me. I think it was 6 or 7 weeks, and man, we just had a blast, and we grew so close as a family. And so my parents modeled this really well. And also, I think I can sense a bit of tension with me and rest. I saw it modeled so well by my family, but I also then have seen it modeled in really toxic ways, where rest was like, a bad word, or Sabbath was like forgotten. And for the beginning half of my life, I saw rest as a really beautiful, wonderful rhythm. And then unfortunately for the next, 10 or 15 years, I saw it kind of heard, people talk about it, criticize it, or kind of be critical of me if I wanted to take rest or refuse to let me or anything like that. And so there's that built a tension in me where I think our church does a great job of saying to all of our leaders, hey, you should take a break, take a rest, take a rest, take a rest, take a rest, take a Sabbath, take sabbatical. But I can still sense that tension within myself where I'm like, well, that's good for the church, but there's a piece of me, and it's very small, but there's this little tension in it. And so I want to confront that. I like to live my life the way of the buffalo, and that is to go into a storm and not run from it. And so I want to take this rest so that that tension can be alleviated or relieved, and I can kind of walk through that. Also, very, very real. My job is it's a tough job. I think if you watch, there's a show on Netflix right now called Quarterback, and that show is incredible because it gives you a little glimpse into what the life of a quarterback is before the game on Sunday. And I think also if you take that show would really show you kind of what a life of a pastor is like. It's except for there's no off season for us, right? It's 50 weeks out of the year, and we're expected to put the ball. Like I believe my job spiritually is to put the ball in the hands of our church and let them run with it all week, and that means that I need to know the playbook. And I need to study that playbook, and I need to know that playbook, and I need to know my plays and the plays of those throughout the week. And I also need to lead an organization and coach and manage and instruct and teach and nurture and all of those things. Also, we have a good sized budget that we have members of our team that work on, and I assist with that. And so there's a lot that goes into my job, and then you add in the spiritual battle that goes on daily in the life of a pastor. There's a very real thing, and if you preach consistently, you feel it, of like a weariness in your soul when you're done, regardless of how the sermon went. And that's just simply because there's so much spiritual warfare going on around us. And so I think it's very important that in all of that we take a short season to pause, catch our spiritual breath, and then connect with God and just hear from Him. And, maybe not be playing quarterback so much, and instead study the playbook a little bit more and listen to the head coach, spending time listening to God and just hearing Him and soaking in His presence, because you can't really do that as a pastor. Even if you're not preaching on a Sunday, it's really difficult to turn off the part of you that's like, oh, I want to study this or analyze this or think about this. Whereas if I take 4 weeks off straight and just spend time alone with God and with my family, I can turn that part off and just hear from Him and be refueled by Him. Also, personally, my health, many of you know, I had a lot of pretty severe health issues, just a short while ago. And we have a family doctor and a nutritionist, and talking to both of them, they've just been explaining to me the amount of damage done to my body and the amount of stress on my body. And so I want to pastor for the rest of my life, and I want to do that well. And so taking time to rest and let my body and my brain heal while my soul is refueled by God is certainly going to enable me to pastor longer, and I think find that balance where I can do that more consistently and with better intentionality, and just lean into all of that through rest. And then there's a tension in my life. I'm a creative. 9% of Americans are creative, and I'm one of those 9%. And it's really hard to, as a creative, turn your brain off and not continually be constantly trying to create. And so a sabbatical, just a time away where you're reconnecting in nature. Nature's super healthy for your brain and your soul and all of those things, really helps a creative like me to instead of constantly pouring out creativity, instead be refueled and find vision and find creativity and find those things by just stepping back for a moment from pouring those things out, but instead allowing God to pour into me. I think of David, who said, my cup runs over, and soul health leads to whole health. And David was by the rivers of water, and he was led by the shepherd into green pastures that restored his soul so that his cup would run over. And that's my goal. That's my goal with sabbatical. And so if you think about it, would you pray for me? Would you pray for our church? Would you pray that I can find rest and find some time to just with my family and enjoy my family and be close to them, find some time to rest, find some time to relax, and find some time to hear from God. And so those are the reasons I'm taking sabbatical, and I'm super excited about them. We've gotten a lot of counsel from a lot of different pastors and leaders, and I kind of sought that out and very intentionally asked them and sought them out and said, teach me and talk to me about this. Also, intentionally, we've really poured into the elders and leaders of our church and kind of said, hey, here's a plan that we're all working with. My goal is that no one at the church even misses me when I'm gone. That's my plan. And we've empowered them and equipped them and given a lot of time with them working so that this will be a good moment for our church as well as a refueling moment for me. So if you're asking, well, what do you need? Well, if you go to our church, man, I'd love for you to be at our church the entire time I'm gone. I'd love for you to go golfing with your friends, go out to eat with your friends, pray with your friends. I'd love for you to just continue to live life in a healthy community. And then I'd appreciate you praying for me and praying for our church as I walk through this time that I believe is going to be super helpful. Hey, always remember, you matter.